Okay, two pieces of business before the review. First off, thank you to the dev, Hyde, who reached out to me and gave me a code for the review. This is the first time as the channel that here, as Kaylee and I have gotten a review code prior to release. This is actually super exciting for me. So Hyde seems like a genuinely cool dude. So dude, if you're watching, thank you. I really appreciate it. Secondly, I have not yet finished the game, so you can kind of think of this as a review in progress. But I wanted to get something out as the game releases officially on May 28th. But I want to give you guys some kind of idea going in. That said, I have spent quite a bit of time. Right now, I'm sitting between 25 and 30 hours and counting. So barring the game taking like a huge left turn, or completely falling apart or something, I don't see my opinion changing much other than maybe, new reveals, that kind of thing. But if it does, I'll put out an update. All that out of the way, let's get started. Infinite Mana is an indie title that's set to pay homage to the greats of the past while carving out its own place in the genre. This is a 2.5D turn-based RPG with some cool world exploration and an interesting combat that's kind of focused on weakness identification, similar to something like Persona or Octopath Traveler. It has a very unique story and an intriguing way of presenting it, so that alone might be enough for you to consider this one. Infinite Mana is made by Wanderlust Games, which is actually a solo developer. He's had this one in the works for the last 6 years, and again, primarily just one guy made this. I got a little chance to talk to him, and he said he had a little bit of help with the soundtrack, although he did do about half of it, and he had some help with the portraits as well in the art department. But otherwise, all one person, which always blows my mind as I can't even fathom how you start this stuff. So pretty insane. All right, but quick baseline before I get into the details. Music in this game is top notch. It's really, really good. I enjoyed every single piece I heard. Visuals are not gonna blow you away, but I felt like they did a really unique thing with the kind of 3D-ish map, which is really cool. And they did some interesting glitch stuff. So I actually thought, while it doesn't look some amazing 3D or whatever, I actually really enjoyed this kind of unique take on the visuals. Characters are well written. The story is fairly innovative. It's far from perfect. Of course, there's going to be issues and hiccups and stuff along the way. And there are a few questionable dialogues here and there, but none so calamitous as to ruin the experience. Also, if you know me, you know how much I care about movement speed, and I'll tell you, these guys are flying when you run around the map, and I love it. Now, I primarily played this one on Steam Deck, but unfortunately, the frame rate chugs pretty hard in open zones. He's got some cool mini games that require timing and stuff, and they were almost unplayable for me on the Steam Deck because the frame rate would chug so hard. It does absolutely fine in smaller areas like caves and dungeons and stuff, but in towns or open areas, it's really, really rough. Now, that doesn't completely go away on desktop either. I run a decently powerful PC. It's nothing top of the line, but it's not bottom barrel either. It's pretty good. And it still was chugging in some areas, but then it would kind of force its way through and just kind of make it happen. But it's way worse on Steam Deck. Now, that said, it's not verified for Steam Deck. So the developer didn't say it was made for Steam Deck. There's nothing like that. So it's still playable for the most part, but the frame rate definitely takes a hit. So, which is a bummer. Hopefully he can get that kind of figured out, because this is a perfect Steam Deck game. Let's get into some more aspects. The story follows the protagonist, who you name. If you don't name it, it's like blank or something. So it doesn't have a canon name, if you will. And you can pick boy or girl. So he or she is called the Wanderer. And you get these really interesting mechanics called glitch techs. I don't want to dig into that too much, but essentially stuff in the world will kind of get all distorted. And when you try and fix it, you might end up in a totally different looking area, a different art style, or even pixel count. Really, really interesting stuff. You can kind of think like the switch from 8-bit to 16-bit in The Messenger, or the change in game style that we've seen in previews or trailers for the Plucky Squire. stuff like that. It's really cool how he played with these different styles. Along with that, you start to kind of get a sense that you, as the Wanderer, are not from this world. Or at least that there's something hidden in your past that makes you different from everyone else. Right away, you meet a few characters who join you, and their stories slowly unfold as you go through the main plot. I really enjoyed the characters a lot, and their interactions with each other were really good. Of course, there's some dialogue that falls flat and a few things that aren't great, but overall, really enjoyable. Some of it really hit. There were some conversations with Zwei. It might be Zwei. I'm not really sure how these were meant to be pronounced. I've been pronouncing it Zwei in my head, but some of those really felt thought out and really touched on some human emotions, which I really liked a lot. They will respond differently as you make choices throughout the game as well. So if you kill enemies, like there's sometimes you have a choice to kill or leave them, and one or two characters will support you if you kill them, and the other ones will support you if you don't. Although as of now, that hasn't had any real ramifications for me, but I'm not sure if that does in the end or not. But because they respond differently, it definitely, even if it doesn't change things forever, it does make the characters feel a little more grounded, right? Like who they are is something that they stick to. But along with kind of that, some of the choices as far as like the main plot is concerned, don't do anything, right? Like I tried it out very specifically. Went through a scenario, picked one answer, got an outcome, reloaded, went through the scenario again, chose a different answer, and it kind of forced you back to that same outcome. So I get that. It's still kind of cool that those choices are in there, but just know they're not a huge deal, at least so far. The overarching plot is pretty interesting. And without going into spoilers, there's basically big bad empire, seems to be doing some pretty heinous stuff. You and your party members were taken by them and your memories were wiped. And as the story unfolds, you and your group kind of move along the path to take out the empire, and your memories seem to kind of slowly come back. And as you do, there are these glitches, which I mentioned, in the open world, and that kind of open up a deeper story into something else going on beyond just the bad empire, good rebellion, right? But I want to leave that for you to kind of uncover on your own. Overall, I would say I enjoy the story, but it probably isn't the thing that's going to most pull me through. I am intrigued by the kind of odd glitch stuff. I think it's interesting, and I am definitely looking forward to what that means later on. I do have some guesses, but I'll find out if I'm right or not. But the relationships between the main character, Zwei, and Troy, again, I'm not sure if I'm saying those right, but whatever, and some of the other characters you meet and how they all kind of fit together. The lore of the world, wow, especially the lore, man. The amount of lore in this game is insane. From people around towns just like talking about stuff, to books you can find and learn stuff through. Okay, now, speaking of those books, I had this hilarious moment where I found a library and I'm reading all these books. One of them titles itself 50 Shades of Grey. And if you click yes to read the book, your character will kind of have a little thought bubble and say, I'd rather not. And I just found that so funny. There are other moments that are legitimately funny, like make you laugh. The nods to pop culture and gaming references thrown in. There's some really funny stuff in there. Nothing like super in your face or anything, but enough to really kind of bring you in more. I loved it. But anyway, the lore and the characters to me are really what make this game. Okay, gameplay. Now there is way more here than I expected. And I'm gonna cover a chunk of it, obviously not get into everything, but I was very surprised at all the stuff thrown in here. There are guises, which are essentially the game's class system. And this is one of the main systems that you will interact with throughout the game. You'll start with 4, and then we'll pick up others along the way. Some you get just through the main story, others you will find through side content, and others in completely random spots you can just totally miss. Any number of your characters can be that class. You could have 4 mages or 4 healers or whatever if you want, or all different. They each have an associated skill tree, but if you battle somewhat regularly, you will earn enough to fill out those trees pretty quickly. Though, one thing that I found really cool is that some of those skills are locked behind content of the game. So whether it's story content or some of them you have to beat certain enemies or find certain things or all these different things that unlock skills for classes. I thought that was actually super cool. You don't just earn the experience and put it in and you're done. Some of it you actually have to get to points or do certain things to get there, which was really cool. I loved combing through areas to try and find things that either unlock a new class or unlock skills from the ones I have. Really makes it interesting to search the world and explore. Each class also has effects that it does in the real world. A thief will allow you to steal from people or steal from their stuff. The trickster will allow you to try and trick people in conversations. Beastmaster allows you to talk to animals, etc. Really love this idea. It just adds that little thing. It's not huge, but it just adds that little bit to these classes to make them worth something else on top of just their abilities. I do think it would have been nice if you could have picked a secondary class and been able to use those skills in combat, because I was trying to have my people master all the classes, but every time you switch to a new one, you're like this weak sauce again and don't have a lot of options. And since combat is so dependent on finding weaknesses in enemies and needing to have lots of options to do so, it was kind of a pain that you master the mage class and think, oh, let's try the healer or whatever, and now you don't have access to any of those abilities. Now, I guess I don't know if that happens later, but there's been no sign of that so far. Now, to be fair, it never was so bad that I would die on these regular encounters without those side skills. It just would make combat sluggish and take forever because you're not doing as much damage. So that was kind of a bummer. They have all these little things like fishing minigame. There's like this whack-a-mole style minigame, puzzles, this, combat, story, crafting, gathering, and even more. I was so surprised to see how many levels to gameplay are packed into this package. Most are kind of small side stuff that you don't even have to engage with, but you can if you want to. And I just think it's really cool that stuff's in there. Now, like I said, combat resembles something like Octopath Traveler, where you have different kinds of attack, i.e. slashing, piercing, crushing, plus a variety of magic types. Most enemies have a weakness to one or more of those attack types, and also some strength against some as well. So most of combat is about identifying those weaknesses and strengths and then attacking them accordingly. One thing that was interesting though, at first, magic was so weak I never wanted to use it. So any physical attack, even from that mage class, would do equal or higher damage than the magic did. But once you level up your magic attack, but more importantly, get the skill in that mage class that allows you to cast the basic spell twice per attack, it changed everything. It's basically broken. I almost never use a higher grade magic because it's not worth it. It doesn't do anywhere close to the same amount of damage as just the double casting low level magic. Plus in this combat, you have your HP, your MP, and TP, okay? Your TP, like tech points, okay? And your tech points will refill as you use basic attacks. And your MP, mostly you have to use items although there's one class I have that a regular attack will slowly fill the MP. The managing system is finding their weaknesses, using your powerful attacks with tech points, and then rebuilding those through regular attacks, hopefully that are also filling the weakness. But when I found this mage class and double casted the low level stuff, I'm using a tiny bit of MP and doing tons of damage. And then if I ever got low, you do a couple basic attacks when they're low on HP or something and build up that MP, because again, they're the ones that get that attack, and it was kind of over. They are definitely the most powerful one I have so far. The other part of combat is this timing mechanic. So when you use a standard weapon, a sort of like target appears with a red circle closing in on the white cursor in the middle. If you time it just right and hit the button again when it gets inside the cursor, you'll do like max damage, and then slightly less damage the farther out from that you are. Sometimes it feels like hitting the button right when the magic hits does something as well, but I'm probably just hallucinating. There was nothing in there about that, and I don't know that for sure. So, you know, I wouldn't worry about that much. Either way, it's a good, simple mechanic to help keep you engaged in combat. I don't think that if you hate turn-based combats that this is going to change your mind all of a sudden. It isn't like some crazy fresh take that you've never seen, but if you enjoy turn-based combat at all, I definitely think this one has a good amount to it. Now, to bring this all together, I think the best of Infinite Mana is the believable world. The music that helps bring you in. It's kind of a weird and quirky story and characters, but I think it's all in really cool ways. Most of the world just feels so lived in. The people feel like they are actually there and stuff is happening in these towns and to these people each day. The mystery is interesting and could definitely be something that hooks you, but I think that really wouldn't have much of a chance without all of the world building that's done here. In the developer's own words, he said, this is a slow burn RPG. So I wouldn't expect to just tear through it, okay? Take your time. If you enjoy these throwback RPGs, you enjoy turn-based combat and interesting characters, then I definitely recommend giving Infinite Mana a shot. All right, guys, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. If this game looks like something you enjoy, but even if you're not gonna buy it right now, hop on Steam, wishlist it, and you know, that helps developers out a lot. So make sure you do that. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. That helps me out a bunch. And as always, thank you for watching and good hunting.